what is your understanding of how schools are funded in Montana?
Well,
Yeah.
current school board candidate sent all of us newbies the 40-page document, and I did print it up to page 28 and then decided I should read the rest on the screen. And it does seem very complicated. By no means, I have not memorized the document. Some of it is pretty tricky. What I got out of it in general, though, is that half of the funding is from the state, quarter is from local property tax, and the other quarter is a mixture of federal, county, and local non-tax sources. Within that, the state has a formula based on average enrollment numbers and then a per student entitlement. That's kind of the gist I have of it so far. Certainly a lot more for me to read and ask questions about. And I think it's interesting as far as, I think it's 7% is the local non-tax. And in this document, it doesn't really talk about private or grant money, but if Kate is the incoming superintendent, I know she has a lot of experience. I think she worked for the Small Schools Foundation, which is a Gates-funded organization. So she has experience with and connections with private funding that I think would be pretty interesting, and I'm guessing pretty much essential for us to do some of these things that we will be looking to do.
Thank you. Mr. Watts.
I would simply underscore what Heather said. I read the same pages. I understand those same general concepts. I recognize that it's a big subject just in terms of how it works. I would underscore the last thing that she said, that regardless of how it works today, it's not enough. And I would say again that it's going to take creativity. It's going to take, look around this community, people support worthy programs, and if we can tell that story and make that case and execute on it, we'll get support. But it's going to take change in the way schools are funded to achieve the things that we've been talking about tonight. It's going to take greater community involvement.
Well, there is equity and there is adequacy, and they both must be met. The nice thing that schools have going for them in the state of Montana is there's a court that has said that that must be accomplished. Now we have a weird formula for equity, and because the schools are all equalized, that doesn't mean that every school spends the same amount per student, but within 20%, and that's considered equal. That doesn't mean we spend enough or enough money is being allocated from the state and federal government for that. Adequacy is really the term that needs to be looked at. And the best way to describe that is if you're being given a very good mandate to educate all students, including special needs students, and yet the costs of those difficult students are not being met, first of all by the federal government, secondly by the state government, then it's very hard to create adequacy within your system. If in attempting to do that, you have to take some of your funding from your regular ed students to help fund another sector, it adds pressure to the system. So there is no easy long-term answer for that. We will, as a school board and as a state association of school boards and educators, continue to work on meeting adequacy. But at this point, we are a ways away from it, and the less the state provides, the more falls on local taxpayers. And you can see again that word friction coming to play. The more that falls on local taxpayers, the more potential problems we have at a local level.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan.
What is it? My understanding of the funding is fairly basic, essentially along the lines of what Heather shared, half coming from the state with a specific amount per student, and then a quarter coming from the community, and then other various sources of revenue for the other quarter. And I think, you know, the field that I chose a field in philanthropy, not because it's something that I fell into, but it's because it's something that I believe strongly in, both service and in philanthropy. So I think maybe being able to use a volunteer corps as a resource, as well as some of our successful entrepreneurs in this community that have great stories to share and great experience to share with our students. By engaging them and helping them provide maybe guest lectures or podcasts or whatever the case may be, maybe that's a resource that remains untapped. But pure philanthropy, I'm not talking about fundraising and raffle tickets and bake sales and that kind of stuff. I'm talking about true emotional and investment on the part of a philanthropist, where they recognize the need in the community, and they're willing to step up and do something about it, not for the recognition, but because of the impact that it's going to make long-term, not only on our local community, but on our state and our country. Difficult economic times are not a time to start skimping on education. It's the time to invest heavily in it. I think the reason that our country's been so successful is because those who came before us did invest heavily and provide opportunities for education, and I don't think that now is the time to step back. So if those funds aren't going to come from a tax base, per se, then philanthropy, grant writing, corporate partners. If we have a vision to move into the 21st century learning and a partnership for 21st century learning, if you have a vision and you're one of those that are out front, those are the kind of folks that are going to want to, corporate sponsors and corporate partners are going to want to step up and support. I look at the relationship between Nike and the University of Montana, or Nike and University of Oregon. What a great promotion for Nike to have their swoosh plastered all over the place on a quality program. Same thing for us. I'll use a Microsoft or a Hewlett Packard or any one of these technological companies that provide the tools that we're going to need to move forward. Is there an opportunity for a partnership there where we can partner with them and hold them up high as a responsible community, a responsible corporate citizen, and it looks good for them and it sure does great work for us. So maybe there's some of those alternative funding sources and support sources of volunteerism as well. So service and philanthropy, I would hope, might be an alternative way for us to move forward.
Thank you. Great job. We're down to the last question of the evening. We'll start with Mr. Watts. Are there other things you can tell us about yourself that will help us to make the decision at the polls?
So I'll describe what I do professionally. I work at Plum Creek, former IT guy, moved over into the business about 5 years ago, and I kind of describe my job, my title's Senior Program Manager, I'm not sure what that means, but I describe my job as a translator. I essentially design software for the business end users, our internal employees, and so I'm the guy that can sit between that business end user and the technical guys and translate back and forth. So I make sure that what the end users need, what pain points they're facing, what opportunities they have, translate into software that's built by the technical team. In that capacity, I've developed quite a bit of experience in facilitating collaboration. Heather mentioned that change is difficult. Changing organizations is very difficult. Public education is even more difficult. But in my job, the current program I'm working on, we started in 2007, and we're maybe 3/4 of the way through it. So perseverance is another skill or trait that I've developed. Personally, I think I'm a nice mix of dreamer and doer. I definitely think big. I'm a strategic thinker, but I also very much love to roll my sleeves up and get things done. And so if I'm on the board, that's what you'll get, and you'll get it at 120%.
Thank you. Mr. Fern.
Well, hopefully I can go the extra mile, as I think I have in the past. I rarely miss meetings. I visit the schools, take an interest, talk to students and talk to teachers. I've had the opportunity to work with both our unions in a negotiating role. And I guess I'd say everyone ought to have that as on their resume. I really, I really kind of missing it this year. So it's been, but we've gained a lot, and so I think that's been an important experience. I think I had a role in bringing the concept of strategic planning as we do it now in the district, the concept of collaboration with our public as we've done with Speak Up. I brought that forward, and luckily we had a superintendent willing and a school board willing to look at it, as well as strategic planning. So I like to think that I'm a pretty grounded idea person. I really appreciate what I'm hearing from the candidates. I can only say that we've really made a lot of progress in 18 years that I've been on the board. I think our policies reflected the ways we deal with students and teachers really reflect that. We are moving forward. We will continue to do that, and I surely would like the opportunity to do that and participate for several more years.
Thank you. Mr. Vine.
Well, I guess share a personality trait that I have that can be both a blessing and a curse, and that is the ability to see all sides to a discussion or an argument, if you will. And that I think provides me the opportunity to find balance and to find compromise, if you will, at times, but also not only seeing where they're coming from, seeing where somebody else who may have a different idea on a subject than I might, but also to understand where that idea is rooted and to respect that. It doesn't make them a bad person or anti-American or anything like that just because they don't agree with me. It simply means that they share a different philosophy on this and a different opinion. And so I think, the blessing is you get to understand all sides. The curse can be coming to a decision. And so that is something that I've professionally and personally been working on here for the last 10 years, 15 years of my career, and been able to bring that along to the point where I think finding compromise and agreement and consensus building, and working with a board of 26 and the plethora of wonderful volunteers I had the opportunity to work with in Western Montana for the Boy Scouts of America gave me just great experience, and working with good people with a passion for a program with very different opinions and coming from very, very different places in their lives, but to all come together for a common goal to do the best job that we can to provide the best educational opportunities for our kids. It's an exciting time and a great opportunity, I think, for Whitefish Schools with the new leadership coming, with our new superintendent and new trustees, and perhaps a new outlook on education given the attention it's received in our legislature and in our local community. We're really kind of at a tipping point here right now, and it's up to us to help move this thing forward, and I'm excited to work with whomever is selected and hopefully in moving Whitefish forward. Together we'll find new ways to fund our schools appropriately, give them the best education for our children in the most fiscally responsible way, and be accountable to our citizens of Whitefish for the decisions that we make, and hopefully have provided them the information that helps them understand why we made the decisions that we did.
Thank you. Mrs. Burke.
For the 18+ years that I've lived and worked in Whitefish, I see so many benefits, and I am a person that sees the glass half full. I would also say that I'm a good listener, I'm dedicated, improving things in Whitefish as a community building, involving people, teaching. Even though I didn't pick it as a career, it's something that I completely value, and I feel like I've been in leadership positions where we've had really tough times, and I've stuck through with tough decisions. I do have the ability to work with a group and weigh options, and I have a lot of patience with implementation of change. And basically, I have invested a lot in this community, and I want to keep investing in our kids, which I see as our ultimate future.